Welcome to lesson 2B of unit 9. We talked about how to find a GCF last time, and now we want to actually get into factoring, which is the title of this unit, and factor an expression by taking out a GCF. Okay, so when we say we're going to factor something, it means that we're going to write the expression as a product of its two factors. In other words, what are things that would multiply to create that value? So for example, we can break 10 into a product of its factors. We could say that 10 is expressed as 5 times 2. These two numbers are the factors that will multiply to 10, or 10 times 1. Okay, but when we do this now, we're going to be doing this not just with numbers, but with algebraic expressions. So this is your process. This is typed out on the guided note sheet. I do recommend you write it down on separate paper if you didn't print the notes. But the first thing you want to do in order to factor out a GCF is first identify what that GCF actually is. So going back to those skills that we focused on last lesson. That GCF value is going to go outside of the parentheses. You're going to take that GCF and divide it out of each term. So whatever's left over when you divide, your leftovers go inside the parentheses. And then between the GCF and those leftovers in the parentheses are the product of your two factors. So those are your factors. This will make more sense when we put it to some examples. Okay, so up here, I have the steps as a little reminder. So our first example, we want to factor the following expression, 10x minus 25x squared. Step 1 is identify the GCF. So the biggest number that would divide both 10 and 25 is going to be 5. And then between x and x squared, the smaller exponent is 1. So 5x is my GCF. And I wrote that outside of my set of parentheses. So the next thing I want to do is divide out my GCF of 5x from each term. So if I do 10x divided by 5x, I'm left with just 2. How do I make this go away? Okay, and when I do negative 25x squared divided by 5x, I'm left with a negative 5x. So the 2 minus 5x is what goes in my expression here, inside the parentheses, my leftovers, and 5x and 2 minus 5x are my two factors. That's my factored version of 10x minus 25x squared. Example 2, same thing. First, I want to identify the GCF. I don't have big numbers to deal with here because they both have a coefficient of 1, but the smallest exponent on A's is a to the first. The smallest exponent on B's is b to the first. So I just have a times b for my GCF, and I put that outside of the parentheses. Now I want to divide each term by that GCF. So when I take my first term, a squared b, and divide it by my GCF of ab, the b's cancel, but I have a left. When I divide ab squared by my GCF of ab, this time the a's cancel, and I have a b left. So a and b, a plus b is my leftovers that I put inside the parentheses. So then there's my factored form. Example 3, I want to factor 8a to the 4th x minus 56a squared. So first, starting with the GCF, the biggest number that's going to divide both 8 and 56 is 8. The smallest exponent on a's is 2, so I can take out 8a squared. And I only have an x in one term. I don't have it in both, so I can't take that out. So all I have for my GCF is 8a squared. So now I want to divide each term by 8a squared. So for the first term, the 8's cancel. A to the 4th over a squared leaves me with an a squared, and then I still have that x left over. The next term, the negative 56a squared, when I divide that by 8a squared, the a squareds cancel, Negative 56 divided by 8 gives me a negative 7. So make sure you're paying attention to whether it's positive or negative. So then when I put those leftovers, what I got when I divided out into the parentheses, I'm going to have a squared x minus 7. Example 4, I want to factor 48x squared y plus 36x cubed y squared. First thing, find the GCF. For the numbers 48 and 36, 12 is going to be the biggest divisor. The smallest exponent on x's is x squared, and the smallest exponent on y's is just y. So I get 12x squared y for my GCF, putting it outside the parentheses. I want to divide each term. So here 48 divided by 12 gives me 4. X squared over x squared cancels. Y over y cancels, so I'm just left with the 4. My second term, when I divide it by my GCF, 12x squared y. 36 divided by 12 is 3. X cubed over x squared gives me x. And y squared over y gives me y. So I have 3xy. And again, that's positive because there's a plus sign in between. So when I write my leftovers in the parentheses, I get 4 plus 3xy. Example 5, 49x to the 5th y squared minus 147x to the 4th y cubed. Now for the identifying the GCF for the numbers 49 and 147, you might need to check and play around and kind of guess and check some options in your calculator, but you should find that the biggest number that divides both 49 and 147 is 49. And then the smaller value for my x's is x to the 4th, and the smaller exponent on the y's is y squared. So my GCF is going to be 49x to the 4th y squared. I'm going to divide that out of each term. So here the 49s cancel, the y squareds cancel, I just have an x left. And on my second term, negative 147 divided by 49 gives me a negative 3. Don't forget about that minus sign. The x to the 4ths cancel. And my y cubed over y squared leaves me with 1y left. So I have negative 3y. Putting those leftovers into the parentheses gives me x minus 3y. So 49x to the 4th y squared and x minus 3y are my two factors. Okay, last one, I forgot to change that. There should be example 6. We have 3x to the 4th plus 21x cubed minus 3x squared. So notice now I have 3 terms. The process doesn't change. I'm just going to have to divide it out for all 3 terms. So my GCF, number-wise, the biggest number that's going to divide 3, 21, and 3 is 3. And the smallest value on my x is x squared. So 3x squared is the GCF. I put it outside the parentheses. Now I want to divide that GCF of 3x squared by all 3 terms. So when I do 3x to the 4th divided by 3x squared, I'm left with x squared. When I do 21x cubed divided by 3x squared, I'm going to get 7x. And when I do my negative 3x squared divided by 3x squared, everything cancels out, so I'm left with a negative 1. So all those 3 values I got for my leftovers are going to be put in the parentheses, x squared plus 7x minus 1. I hope you found those examples helpful. By all means, pause, rewind, rewatch the video as you need to. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. And then you have 6 questions to try on your own.